You've been trying to heal, maybe for years. You've done the breath work, you've done the journaling, you've done the gratitude meditations, you've done the yoga class where you've cried, or you've done the yoga class where you met that numbness where you can't cry. Both are intelligent responses, but you still feel stuck. You still feel like you can't quite understand this anxiety response that you have. Today we're going to look at it. I'm going to look at it through neuroscience. We're going to look at it through Ayurveda, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and yoga therapy. And they all agree on one thing. You're not going to be able to do it in intensity. You're going to have to do it in a safe environment. Now that's complicated, right? And it's even complicated within the work, but it's complicated in our culture. It's complicated with what's going on right now. But I'm going to show you today, not just the theory, but I'm going to give you some examples today of how to do it. So let's go. Welcome to Heartmind with Holly. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm Holly Sin, yoga therapist, and I use TCM and Ayurveda in my yoga to create elemental experiences. And I use the elements to help heal clients, to help engage with students in classes, and help train people how to empower themselves with their mind-body systems, empowering them to center their mind in their heart. And that includes you, if you're watching this here today. So let's dive into the nervous system and anxiety response, what to do, and how you can really start to shift your response to anxiety. I've been sitting with this question for a very long time now. Why do people who put all of their effort in healing and run towards healing and give such hard time and energy to it still feel like they're running in the same place, still feel stuck? And what I have found is that with these 4 wisdoms, it's very clear that you're going to have to relearn how to actually nourish yourself, create rhythmic patterns, and start to open and expand your mind to the new pathways to go forward. And maybe sometimes it's not forward. Maybe there's other directions you're needing to go in. And we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. So again, we're going to look at that through 4 lenses. First, neuroscience, because they're coming up with real tangible ways for us to understand, analyze, and give name to what we're experiencing. Then Ayurveda, this is thousands of years old wisdom in the elements, in how the mind-body system works. And they were talking about a lot of this way before Western science. TCM, knowing how to move your energy and really understanding how the energy moves through your body. And then yoga therapy, not yoga for exercise here, but yoga to start to not only heal your nervous system, but start to reclaim your life, your power, your life force, your prana. And here's where things get really beautiful. And what really helps me nerd out is all 4 of these things are coming into an agreement and into a rhythmic sense of truth of how to start to approach the mind-body system. And it's coming together today in our lifetime, in this moment. So let's go into neuroscience first. And we're going to talk about the nervous system again today. And we're going to actually break down the nervous system into 3 parts rather than 2. Many of you have heard me talk about or know that the autonomic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that's automatic, runs on 2 modes, typically spoken of, and that's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic will get us going, will get us switched on. It turns on our muscles, and especially the psoas muscle, so that we could kick, fight, or we could run, go strong into the gallop of getting away, or we could freeze and clench in and close up. And so the psoas is really big on that, but also all limbs. So the psoas is really big with that, but both sets of limbs, the arms closing and the legs, or the arms running and the legs. The sympathetic nervous system, though, could be broken up into 2 aspects, and we feel that as well, because sometimes it just gets this bad rap, right? Like that we want to switch off that sympathetic nervous system, but we know we can't do that either, because it's partly what it's here to do. It's helping us stay alive and stay protected. Not only that, but the sympathetic nervous system, when in balance, really helps us to get things done. And there is an element of being human and being in the world where we do things. This is important. what happens is our identity and or the pressures of culture just maybe looks at our nervous system more like a machine that should keep doing things until it kind of burns out, doing until you just completely go into chronic fatigue. But we do need a sense of that anxiety, that sympathetic nervous system switching on, a little anxiety in the morning to get up, get going. And there's benefits to that, and there's a beautiful energy that there's benefits to that. There's an energy to that that we need. There's another part of the sympathetic nervous system where we're really switched on, but we're despondent. So we're really alert in one way, but we're withdrawn and we're really numb. This is where disassociation might come. Again, this isn't all bad. This is actually really intelligent and what we need in times of trauma, where we can have a sense of that dissociation from an event or a moment. But what happens if we're not aware and empowered to switch or feel what's needed and stay more central rather than in extremes of either of those sympathetic responses, then we start to feel an accumulation of despondency, dissociation, disconnection, and that's where high anxiety can start to accumulate to the point where we need support, we need medication, we need the sense of getting and receiving more support. Then the dissociation makes us feel isolated, and you get a sense of a more airy or a more existential depression and emptiness and a lack of luster, a lack of love for life. So the polyvagal theory is in controversy right now, but I think it's a really good way to look at it for now, in that you have the sympathetic nervous system and the polyvagal nerve is really relaxed. It's allowing rest and digest. It's helping the brain communicate to the heart and vice versa. Things are really breezy and sweet and restorative. This is what Dr. Stephen Porges, labeled or coined as the ventral vagal activation. Then that sympathetic nervous system that we kind of need to get things moving, get things going, get kind of activation in our creativity and moving our limbs, like for a good, healthy run, where we still feel empowered to do it, is the sympathetic response. Now, that can, if it goes too far, it can lead to kind of anger, frustration, and a little bit of that hyperanxiety. Then there's the dorsal activation, which is the more despondency, where you're on the couch or you're in your bed, you can't move, and yet you can't rest either. And so science is starting to catch up with the story isn't necessarily the trauma, it's the response in the body's loops that are the trauma. Now, many yoga therapists try to lean away from story. What the story does help do is access those body states. And the story does matter because our mind is creating story all the time. That is what we do to pass on information, right, to our children. And that's what we do to pass information on from culture to culture. We tell story, and we can create the story that we need to tell. Not like lying or not telling the truth, but starting to recreate that story that we need to hear and know to empower ourselves. And that is grounded in truth. The story can carry with it chitta or vibration that will help us access what we need in our bodies. So the story can be really important, but sometimes in neuroscience and Western medicine, we lean too much into talking, rationalizing, and trying to create that story through that lens. Whereas now we're talking about how to somatically communicate that story and reshape that story through the body. So you cannot think your way out of an anxious state. You can't think your way out of that despondent dorsal reflexive space. You have to feel your way through it. You have to use the body, the chitta, the impressions, which I'll talk about more in the yoga therapy. The vagal nerve that runs from the brainstem into the heart, into the digestive tract, a huge part of responding parasympathetically, sympathetically with the nervous system, it will not respond to pushing. If you do push and you try to push your way out of trauma, then it's just going to burn you out and switch you between that high doership into that chronic fatigue. And so some things that do start to switch the vagus nerve into the parasympathetic is rhythmic, like a rocking, for example, rhythmic movement. It's vibration from another person's regulated nervous system. And that's one of the reasons why it can be really healing for you to come to a therapist, whether that's a traditional therapist or a yoga therapist, Ayurvedic therapist that holds the center in a regulated space for you for an hour. The breath, the sounds, allowing space and time for your physiological system to process. I invite you to sit with that for just a moment, a breath. Now, let's jump into Ayurveda. Again, Ayurveda has been with us for thousands of years. Every time I look into the research, it's around 5,000, but timelines really are tricky sometimes with history. Things shift. Around 5,000 years old. And it was already in those ancient times talking about this sense of anointing through oils, a sense of lubricated love to your body. And this sounds kind of maybe woo-woo, or it sounds a little bit maybe sensational, but it's the way that we can start to soothe ourselves. And the other huge part of Ayurveda that I've learned and that I do for myself, as well as for clients, as well as for students in training, is something called dinacharya. So the other important part is to do it regularly. And this is a daily practice, a daily routine of anointing yourself with love, making yourself feel the sense of special love that you need every single day. Ayurveda never separated the body and the mind. It's always saw it as one, and that's one of the huge lessons and one of the huge teachings that the East has helped the West understand, to stop separating these things. And I'm going to come back to this word chitta, C-I-T-T-A. Sometimes if we're going to spell it in English language, C-H-I-T-T-A. It's a really beautiful word that can translate in different ways. Mind stuff, the material of the mind. Impressions, the way that a footprint or a handprint or a thumbprint impresses on something and it has a particular imprint. So does every aspect that we take in through the mind. And we can do that with images, like an image of the tree starts to make an imprint on your mind and you start to feel or sense the image of the tree. Some people work or have a harder time with images. So you can think even, I say it to my daughters all the time, they make, you have put an impression on me. Their energy, their sense of being is unique and it impresses on me new chitta, new vibrational ways of being. This is a very powerful word, and it comes back in yoga therapy as well. So we're trying to create impressions of love through the action of dinacharya, impressions of self-love that soothe, that take us to that parasympathetic place, that helps us feel warmth, joy, and a sense of embodiment. And so Ayurveda has been saying you can't separate what you think from how you feel, and how you feel from what you think. So if you're feeling crappy, you're going to start thinking crappy. If you're feeling low or you're feeling anxious, you're going to think anxious thoughts. There's a correlation. And this comes back to the story. If you're telling yourself a story that is distrusting of people, for one example, distrusting of people, you're going to feel that distrust in your body. But if you start to build trust in your own body and you start building trust in the earth, you start building trust in the oil and in that daily way of trusting that you can love yourself, then the story starts to shift and you can recreate that story. And then the mind starts to change its thoughts and its story. So they're working together. And this is what Ayurveda is saying, that you can create impressions and you can create a sense of story around an impression, and that will change the feelings. Or you can start to change the feelings, and then that will start to change the story in the way that you're thinking. Where the West gets it wrong is sometimes it's just the thinking, and if we can think right, then we can keep moving forward. But whichever angle you're going to, if you're going to think differently, you've got to make sure that you're feeling it differently too in your body. All right, let's take a deep breath. We're going to transition into TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine. I use this through the meridians with yoga, but it's the same system that uses acupuncture to start to move things, as well as herbs. And what they're moving is energy. They're moving qi, sometimes qi in other traditions. But the idea is that we're trying to move or flow energy through the body. And what Chinese medicine takes with this lens of the nervous system is that the leader is not, again, the brain. The leader is actually the liver. And when the liver is compromised, the liver energy, then again, our thoughts can be high anxiety, it can be disjointed, and we have a high sympathetic nervous system. It is governed through movement and using your muscles. So rhythmic movement can be really important for moving the qi and the liver qi, obviously directly into the meridians as well, but these are very, very deep. So I do a lot of deep twisting when I'm working with the liver, which is that detoxing kind of practice that we can do in yoga. And the same is trying to happen through the herbs or through the acupuncture with Chinese medicine. They're trying to clear and cleanse the liver energy so that the director of that energy is more clear, and the thoughts of directing the energy in where it needs to go is clearer, cleaner. And so if you're needing that clearer mind, more grounded mind, it's not aggressive movement, it's gentle, repetitive, or rhythmic movement that can help. And when it's done, it's said in TCM, they have this word shin, which is the spirit, or I would think of it more like the soul. And then we have a light that is clearer in our eyes, and it helps for the spark within us to be seen and to see. This is in Ayurveda and yoga connected to fire as well. And when we have too much fire, liver is the place, the site in which pitta or fire can really erode or dry out. So it starts to dry out our spirit, and we start to vacate and draw out kind of back into the eyes, or back in our spirit contracts back into our body. And so it's trying to help us shine clearly and shine from the center our true spirit, our true soul. If your spirit feels dim, or you look in the mirror and you don't quite see yourself or know that person, that's a sign that we need to work with the liver. That's a sign that the heart mind needs to be readdressed, come back to the center. That's a sign that we need to practice. That is something we can work with. Again, you've been asking for something to do. We have the oil massage, massaging daily, showing yourself love, and going into the liver meridian, going into gentle rhythmic motions for that. And a big one for the liver would be gentle rhythmic twisting your spine. Yoga practitioners for a very long time, we've known, and we knew, or they knew, that the breath is the master of the mind. In the West, we put it in the brain, and we say the nervous system is the master of the mind. And we're so obsessed with the nervous system. And we do talk about the breath and come back to the breath, but then we go right back into trying to settle the nervous system and talk about the nervous system. In yoga healing, and why it's so healing, is because we know that the breath is the master of the mind. The respiratory system having an effect on the cardiovascular system is affecting your mind. That is what's affecting your nervous system. Of course, it's a marriage. It's a symbiotic relationship. So the opposite can affect, the nervous system can affect our ability and capacity in the respiratory system, of course. But if we start to change the breath, we start to change the mind. And here's the thing. You can't directly change your cortisol levels. You can't directly change your heart rate, although some might say you can, but how you can is through the breath, because what you can change in your conscious mind is your breath, how deep, how full it is. And it might not be as deep or full as your neighbor, but it can become deeper and fuller than your last breath if you bring consciousness to it. Not only the breath capacity, deeper, fuller, longer, but also the direction in which the breath is going. And I'm going to do a more practice-based video next around this, even this week for you. And this is called the Vayus. Remember that the breath and the nervous system are really governed by Vata. This is air and space. This is what moves things along the nervous system, like our neurons. This is what moves the breath, is prana. Well, there are sub-doshas of Vata, or there are ways in which the air moves in space. And these are called the Vayus. This is the biggest tool for the yoga practitioner, yoga teacher, yoga therapist. We're moving energy in certain ways. Some people get really attached to a style or intensity. And again, that intensity, to go back to the very beginning of this episode, you're telling your system more that you're not safe. I'm going to keep going fast. I'm going to keep the intensity up with exercise or with intense poses. But sometimes the most nourishing thing we can do for ourselves is to slow down. Sometimes it can be the best thing, especially if we're used to going at a very quick pace, if we're used to really burning bright and doing a lot. The counter is going to be to nourish and feel into the subtleties of these Vata subdoshas, the Vayus, and how you can move that without having to necessarily move your body. Now, sometimes the easiest way, and I'm going to show this, the easiest way to do so is to move the body so you can kind of sense the flow of it. But there are 5 Vayus, and they help you ground, they help you circulate, they help you digest, they help you move things upward, outward, into the world, up, out of your system. And then they also help you move things into the heart. They help you expand and know or sense a connection as you go up as well into a sense of your spirit self, your connection to the world. So these are the 5 Vayus. I'll say that again. 1 is to ground, release through grounding. And this is really important for the nervous system to come into a sense of safety. 1 is going to be to circulate. And when we don't feel safe, we tense up and we do not circulate energy, emotions. 1 of them is to digest. And that's another thing, is that as we clench, we're not digesting experiences. We're not digesting the trauma. We're letting it just sit in ourselves. The other one is to move things up and out, up and out. It's the same energy we need to speak and express and get things out. So that can be really important with trauma work, as well as to start to feel this. One of the big things we feel in trauma oftentimes is that lump in your throat, or even a sense of strangulation. And so we know that that up and out direction of prana is compromised. Then we're going both, again, a relationship between the sky and our heart, expanding, expressing that way, and bringing prana in. This is receptivity, receiving your prana, receiving your life force, receiving connection to the world. And that is super powerful. And so here, when we're able to maybe sense that and then drop into a nice, sweet, big Yoga Nidra, which is another huge practice in the Heartmind method. Yoga Nidra starts to help you understand you can direct your energy. You can populate your energy sources within your body. Rest, you can start to detach, and you can start to create your reality in deep, deep rest. And this allows for greater sense of sleep, but also greater sense of energy for your day. Isn't that what we're all wanting? And so again, all of these, the neuroscience, the Ayurveda, the TCM, and the yoga is all pointing again to the same thing. Your nervous system isn't broken. You are not broken. You're just needing and wanting over time to learn the language of how to regulate your nervous system. And you're wanting and needing to do that in your body and breath. When we do, we start to live more in the heart, in the heart mind. Our mind is grounded here in the center. If you're feeling like this really resonates with you, I want you to know something. You don't have to know the science terms. You don't have to know the Sanskrit terms. You don't need to know about the doshas and everything else. What really matters is this moment. where you feel a resonance, a vibrational knowing in your system that you're starting to find your way. And that alone will start to lean you back into a more parasympathetic nervous system response of rest and digest. Trust that you are going to digest this material. I'm so happy that you're here and that you found me. And I really hope that this supports that and that you feel it as you take a deep breath. And if you felt something resonate, I do have the free secrets, somewhat not so secret anymore, Heartmind Yoga Nidra that you can access for free on this channel. And this is a small channel, so I appreciate your views. I appreciate your subscribing, hitting that button and becoming a subscriber. If you know someone that could really benefit or that likes this material or needs this material, please share this video. I hope you travel well. Enjoy your yoga, enjoy your prana, your life force. And I'll see you next time. I am putting up the Vayu video next where we're going to practice and put it in the body. I bow to you. Travel well. Namaste.